Let's do a review of what we looked at in this series. We started off by looking at a history of orphans from ancient times to the modern era. Then we examined the revenge for the father theme, where a child has their parents taken away by some sort of monster who ironically becomes sort of a second father. In the Orphan Justicer video, I got to go on my Batman tangent, but we also looked at how the good and evil fathers of an orphan character could possibly reflect the good and evil sides of a child's natural father, and some implications involved in that. The next video was about the orphan Frankenstein monster, whose story warns us against science advancing too quickly, but it also laid the groundwork for many similar stories. We pursued some of these ideas in the Abject video, where we also discussed some cultural theory, and we looked at how possibly these Frankenstein monsters represent a sort of Oedipal resentment against a child's natural father. We observed that the X-Men series tries to confront some of the realities facing orphans, and we also talked about the importance of the van nerd archetype. After the Abject video, we looked at animals in orphan movies. Normally they come in and they help the kid, but nothing is really resolved. But we also looked at how animals are often orphan characters, potentially in an effort to environmentalize us. What the hell's wrong with that orang? Next up, we examined girls' cartoons, and found that many orphan characters discovered that they were actually fairy princesses or whatever, while others conveniently had no moms, so they became daddy's little princesses.
That they don't reprimand their daughters.
Afterwards, we discussed how Chosen One characters are often orphans, so they're free to fulfill their greater, universal, fantastic destiny. We also briefly examined Chosen One characters in Asian literature, and how they are often orphaned and raised in temples. In the Lil Bastards video, I discussed how orphans are often used to show kids how to grow up, and also they're used as a sort of writing device that allows them to go on fantastic adventures. In Living on the Edge, we examined how some well-written orphan characters are willing to go places normal people aren't, but too often these orphan edge characters are inaccurately glamorized. We also examined how orphans are used as a writing device to bring in edge characters, such as Ren and Stimpy.
Okay, Kowalski. What kind of sandwich do you want? Meat!
In my analysis of Japanese orphans, I looked at how these perhaps represent an anxiety involving workaholic parents. I also expressed that orphans who connect with older people might represent a desire to reconnect with one's own grandparents. In the following video, I analyzed how orphan characters are used to both promote and protest war. And in the last video, I concluded that orphan characters in musicals are just really frigging annoying.
I know this man, my friends, his name's Inspector Javert. Said I don't believe a word he says, 'cause none of it's true. This only goes to show what little people can do.
I'd like to take the time to remind you that this was an amateur project. Perhaps I made some conclusions which are unsubstantiated and that you don't agree with. Because this was my first major video project, I want to make a habit of addressing any mistakes I made and also answering any questions or comments that you might have. I said that there were only 3 boy ponies in the My Little Pony universe. There are in fact more, but it is still a female-dominated world. I also said that the battle in Return of the Jedi happens on Endor, whereas many people say this is the moon of Endor. While this subject is still open to debate, I want to give both sides equal weight. In the introduction, I said that the name of the girl in Aliens was Mouse when it is in fact Newt, and I think I was out of line in the last video when I said I wanted to punch Shirley Temple in the teeth. This goes against my whole message of trying to protect children, and I apologize. Nonetheless, I believe I've proven my overarching thesis true. Orphans in our culture are misrepresented. Although there are some exceptions, it doesn't show the true story, and I want to show you what that is now.
I landed in Bogota, Colombia in 1978, and my world was dramatically changed. For the first time, I saw street children. I thought of my children back home in warm, comfortable beds, eating good food, being loved by a parent. And I saw these children in the streets, and they were digging in garbage cans looking for food. It was nothing like I'd ever seen before. These children have no resources at all. There are no homes, no means of them getting a job. There's really no one who cares. And through that experience, we saw the beginning of what was to become Streams of Mercy. There are millions of children who have been left orphaned through war, through disease, through AIDS, through leprosy. Drug addiction is rampant. They are sold into prostitution. They're lost. They have no place to live. In many cases, both parents have died of AIDS. To see children in that condition is really shocking, and it's something that changes your life. Story after story is more shocking than the last one, and yet, in the midst of all of it, we have hope that we can make a difference in the lives of these kids.
I won't lie, this project has had a huge impact on me. The statistics are difficult to look at. The problem is huge. It's impossible to count how many orphans are in the world because, of course, many of them don't exist on the map. But from a personal standpoint, I think that in a few years I probably will adopt. These kids need help and it's not that difficult. And just to continue that thought, I want to look at where perhaps orphan literature is going and examine the phenomenon of celebrities adopting. You can trace celebrity adoption back to people like Mia Farrow and Julie Andrews, but recently it's become such a huge phenomenon with Brangelina, I hate saying that, Madonna, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sharon Stone, Meg Ryan, Jim Caviezel, I don't know, the Count of Monte Cristo guy. Ewan McGregor's adopted, but he did spend some time in Mongolia, so I respect that. And of course, Mr. Cruz.
He doesn't act anymore. He's on cruise control. I just made that up. Hachi machi.
I'm really glad these kids are off the street, don't get me wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of slimy, sneaky agent that's telling all these celebrities, you gotta adopt now, you gotta adopt now.
I like you two. Kill me, I like the two of you. And when I like two people, I want to help them out. That's just my nature. I want to help out people that I like. You see that? A priest. A priest. It's like a nun with a jacket. It's a boy nun. He wants to be a boy nun.
I think all this celebrity attention for orphans is a really good thing. It's great. Maybe we'll prepare our culture, and pretty soon you'll see stories that reflect how difficult their lives can be, so that we'll be ready to address their needs. At the same time, maybe we'll expand our sort of identity of what it means to be a family. It won't be 2 or 3 kids. Maybe it can be 4, 5, 6 kids, and maybe they don't have to be your own children naturally. I think this could also assist couples who aren't able to produce a child through natural means. But also, I don't think you're aware of how difficult the problem is in North America. Often you see pictures of orphans in Africa or wherever, but they're pretty huge here. There's over 200,000 in the States.
And the biggest pressure in this year's budget, and the one that continues to cause the difficulties we're having, is the rise and the cost of incarceration. What do we know about some of these prisoners? Well, guess what, folks? 70% of them were former foster children. The small amount of money that we, as a state, then pay for this program to keep those foster children from becoming next generation's welfare mothers, from becoming the next generation of incarcerated adults. These are costs that we will pay if we do not do programs like this.
Believe it or not, the number of orphans in North America is actually increasing. This is largely due to drugs and other causes. But when you categorize everyone, I mean orphans, partial orphans, kids who are separated from their parents, kids who are taken away from their parents, there's some staggering statistics. And again, a lot of the boys join gangs. A lot of the girls are either forced into prostitution or they join prostitution. They're sought out, actually. And workers get burned out. They have so many kids to look after, and they just get stressed out, which means many of them quit because they can't handle it. And the people who remain often have bad intentions, like who would go after vulnerable children? I don't know, possibly pedophiles? It happens more often than you would think. And there are many scandals in the States right now.
When she found that 2 foster parents had criminal records, a son living there with multiple felonies, and a convicted sex offender visiting and sometimes caring for the children, she refused to arrange an adoption. Her CPS supervisors responded with this memo recommending the adoption should proceed quickly.
The issues that orphans are faced with, both at home and abroad, are nothing short of enormous. And I, for one, believe that culture can make a huge difference. So if you're a writer, I'd ask you to please consider carefully before you use an orphan character in one of your stories. And if you're just a normal person who likes watching movies, all I want you to do, please, I don't want your money or anything, I don't know how to use it, just point out an orphan character whenever you see it. That's it, that's all I'm asking. Anyways, this has been a great project for me. I hope you had fun, and thanks for watching.